This is Skoda Karoq, a crossover, different or like every other car in the segment. Let's find out.
If from a certain angle Skoda Karoq looks familiar, it's probably because it's similar in places to the first-generation Volkswagen Tiguan. It also has similar dimensions. Actually, the Karoq has similar dimensions to just about everything, from Dacia Duster to Volvo XC40. And here comes the kicker. In some markets it's actually quite expensive. So why would you choose it over a Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross or a Toyota CHR?
If you don't like to stand out from the crowd, this premium beige Skoda Karoq should be right up your alley. Nobody's gonna notice you, sort of like driving in this fog.
But let's assume you somehow managed to find your Karoq in the parking lot. You open the boot and this is why you buy a Skoda. 521 liters capacity in standard trim, which is the best result in the class. If you go for VarioFlex folding and sliding seat package, you get between 480 and 590 liters depending on the seat position. With the seats all the way back, you get 480 liters, which is still one of the best results in the segment.
What I really like about Skoda are the so-called Simply Clever solutions. There are a bunch of anchor points, nets, hooks, which are huge by the way, and this is what every family car boot should look like. Now, for some reason, you really have to slam the boot lid, otherwise there is a warning light on the dashboard. And an irritating detail, the boot lid ends just a few millimeters too high. It's not perfectly aligned with the rear quarter panels. Now, I checked stock photos, it looks like that on all of them, and it can't be unseen. You're welcome.
I will admit I'm not a big fan of this VarioFlex system. The seats are heavy, folding mechanism is quite complicated. Someone before me either tried to carry some larger items or to remove one of the seats and broke one of the plugs.
Instead of a normal armrest, which would sort of unfold here from the back seat, you have to fold the middle part. Now, there are a couple of cup holders here, so that's fine, but to use it really, you have to lean on it. So I suppose this is for a smaller passenger, namely for kids, but kids are in child seats and, well, never mind. So anyway, once we get rid of this, which is not easy because you have to pull some strings. Once you get rid of this, you notice, okay, it's obvious there must be sensors in seatbelt buckles so that we know if the seatbelts are fastened and if the airbags can deploy, etc., etc. But usually cables for these sensors are somehow better concealed, and here they're just outside. I mean, this thing is going to break off sooner or later, rather sooner than later. Not very simply clever, Skoda. Not very simply clever at all.
On the plus side, there is a lot of legroom and headroom. Door bins are quite big, there's a 12-volt socket, air vents, and a very interesting way to prevent seatbelts from getting caught in folding seats. Interesting, but it doesn't really work. In the front, at first glance, everything looks in order. Very German, although this car is actually made in the Czech Republic. Anyway, the devil is in the details, and the only USB port is in this cubby with a sliding cover. Plug a cable in and you can't close it. Also, the cubby is too small, so a large smartphone with a cable plugged in will stick out. Cup holders obstruct gear change. The way around it is to put the armrest to a higher position or get an automatic.
And one more thing, the sun visors are too small. Might not be a problem today because the weather is dreary, to say the least, but on a sunny day, there is not enough sunshade here, there is not enough sunshade here, so there is no extending part, there is none of this like an L-shaped thing here, nothing like that. And when you unfold it to the side, it doesn't move. Yeah, looks like the straight pipes sun visor test. But it doesn't move, but that's not a problem. In most European cars it doesn't move. But here, there's like 20 centimeters space, and that's unacceptable. I'm very disappointed with you, Skoda.
Complaints aside, in the Skoda Karoq you can either get analog dials or a full digital dashboard like in Volkswagen or Audi. And this 8-inch infotainment system is quite impressive too. Outside of Volkswagen Group, displays this sharp are only on premium cars. Ever wondered what these elastic bands in the door bins are for? Not enough space for a laptop, so maybe a map? Just in case you don't like your car sat-nav or Android Auto. Depending on the market, Skoda Karoq may be available with 4 engine variants. There is a 1.0 115 horsepower TSI, 1.5 150 TSI, 1.6 115 horsepower TDI, and 2.0 150 horsepower TDI. They come with 6-speed manuals or 7-speed DSGs. The most powerful diesel gets all-wheel drive.
This test car is powered by a 1-liter petrol engine, a 3-cylinder 115 horsepower, the same like in a Volkswagen Up GTI. I'm not sure it's enough to give this engine street cred, so think twice before using this argument in front of your mates.
Anyway, Skoda promises this car will accelerate from 0 to 100 km per hour in about 10.5 seconds, and it will use about 5.5 liters per 100 km combined. My best result, extra urban, was 6.5, and around the city, 8 is more than likely. And that's if you follow the Eco Nanny orders to the letter.
Because Karoq's Eco Nanny is very strict and demands you put the car in 6th. At even very low speed. So for example, I'm going 60 kilometers per hour right now, and it says I should be going in 6th. Now this also means any sort of slight incline forces me to drop like 2 or 3 gears instantly, otherwise the car will start stalling, the engine, not the car. Speaking of stalling, be careful during a dynamic start or when crawling in 2nd gear. Stalling in these situations is unfortunately quite common with small turbocharged engines.
Except for hard acceleration, the Karoq is relatively quiet. Steering is very light and the ratio is quite high. Not only does the car roll in the corners, but you also have to lean heavily the other way to turn the wheel. The gearbox is quite light to use, damping is good, and so is visibility.
Skoda Karoq is an aspirational shopping trolley. It's much better than Dacia Duster, it's more practical than Jeep Compass, it's better equipped than Nissan Qashqai. And what about the price?
For the English version of my reviews, I usually use German prices. However, Skoda seems to be ridiculously expensive in Western Europe, with prices starting around 27,000 euro. In Poland, this test car with options costs around 27,000, on par with other models in its class. A high-spec Karoq costs around 35,000. Although for this kind of money you could not swing a Volvo XC40 or a Jaguar E-Pace, a Mini Countryman is not much more expensive.
So, if you live in Western Europe, I'm sorry, but the only reason to buy a Skoda is if you want to be considered a bit left field. And what's your favorite compact crossover? Let me know in the comment section below, subscribe if you haven't, and join me for more reviews every Friday. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.